Have you ever thought your imagination just isn't good enough? But what if that could be improved? I used to look at different artists and designers and think that their brain is just somehow different than mine. My ideas were just nowhere near as good as the things that I saw more experienced concept artists making. I no longer think that a good imagination is just something that you have or don't have. Also, this is one of those topics that I don't feel at all weird talking about because after finishing art school, I worked full-time as a concept artist for a whole decade. After I went freelance, I've started doing mostly illustration work, but also concept art for games and film. I've also taught concept art in game schools for several years, so I don't think it's at all weird to say that imagination itself has been my main profession for most of my work life. The most common misconception that I often encounter when talking about concept art is that people assume that concept artists' job is to make paintings and illustrations. That is like saying a coder's job is to write text files. It might be technically true, but it's also a very misleading way of putting it. Concept art is about coming up with interesting ideas and visual problem solving. All of the actual paintings will be unusable in the final product in 99% of the cases, but the ideas themselves are what those projects are built out of. I'll also be painting two pieces in this video, and before anyone asks, I'm using Foggy Hill brush in both of these pieces, and only Foggy Hill brush. Foggy Hill brush is available to all channel members until the end of this year. As a way of thanking all of my channel members who make this channel possible for you to watch, I'm making December download package bigger every week. Thank you again for making my work here possible. You'll see that in both of these paintings, I'm painting the first layers in different colors, because the texture of the brush will allow those layers to show through in the final piece, and that will allow the color to mix optically. I'll also show details of this later, and there you'll see how those colors show through the different layers of texture. You can do this, by the way, with any brush that produces crisp, pastel-like textures, so remember that you don't need this brush to use this technique. You can do it with anything that has a similar vibe to it. So how do you build better imagination? First, I need to explain how I see imagination and how it manifests as moments of inspiration in art. And this is going to be the foundation for the rest of this video. Think of your mind as an endless void, like a zero-gravity space. In this space, all of your experiences and memories and thoughts are floating around in random directions. Sometimes they collide, and that combination registers in your head. This is not yet a moment of inspiration. We'll get to that in a few seconds. People have these moments of active imagination all the time. Everyone has these. But when we grow up, we lose the ability to notice them. A child might come up with a new imaginary friend, for example. Right away, they can start a conversation with that character that nobody else sees. But if I did that, then I'd probably be in some kind of serious treatment for that condition, and I'd need some constant medication to navigate through normal life. So what we should be striving towards is not a mind of a child, but to be aware of the mental locks that we have built between us and our imagination over the years, so that we can open that connection again when we need it. I wanted to make this video as practical as possible, so this is going to be two parts of things that you can do to improve your imagination. And the first step is yes and technique. When you notice a small voice of inspiration giving you an idea for creative work, when you feel two or more of your unrelated thoughts or concepts colliding in your head, do it. This might sound simple, but in the beginning, this is going to be the hardest part to get the ball rolling. What is more likely to happen is that you might hear that idea, you might notice that it's happening, but it causes no reaction on your part. You don't take action. Because you think you're not skilled enough, or the idea wouldn't work, or that you don't have the right tools. Seriously, I could go on all day listing the reasons that I have used to shoot down perfectly good ideas that I could have started to use for a painting idea, but I shot them down because of all of these completely stupid reasons. The worst reason that you could possibly have for turning down an idea is thinking, this is a bad idea, this is just not what I'm looking for right now, or it's not me, I don't do that stuff. All of these are the thing that you should never say out loud. If there's only one thing that you remember from this whole video, then please let it be this one. Do not call your ideas bad ideas. Not by speaking out loud, not by writing, and if at all possible, don't even think that your ideas are bad, because this is the worst thing that you could possibly do for the development of your imagination. Basically, your imagination can take the hint. If it notices that it's not required or inspiration is not needed on your part, it will take the hint and just leave you alone. Trust me on this. We need to create a positive feedback loop for these ideas. When you notice an idea that could be turned into a piece of creative work, your most important task is not to just do the actual work, but also to send a signal into your behavior that these ideas will initiate positive action and positive experiences. Creativity is not a finite pool of resources that you use up, so don't feel like you're throwing away imagination energy by jumping onto every idea that comes your way. The more you dedicate time to creative work, the more ideas will be coming your way. This is you strengthening that bond with imagination. Building these behavior patterns works both ways. You can encourage them or discourage them based on your own actions. So what most people are doing is building more distance to their creativity by not responding to those rare moments of unique ideas that happen in their head when those thoughts and experiences make connections in their head. Turning down an idea and saying no to it also sends a message to our brain. The message is simply, these thoughts are a waste of time and they don't turn into anything positive that we want to keep doing. Every time you say no to an idea, no matter how uninteresting it might feel at that time, you're also saying no to the next one that would come after that. And you're increasing the time between these moments happening. So to build a behavior pattern that enables more moments of inspiration to happen, we need to turn those ideas into positive experiences with creative work. The work itself needs to feel like a reward. That means that you will do the task that is asked of you, and this is really important, you'll have to like your work and be grateful for the idea that came to you. Like I said earlier, these combinations of different concepts or memories that form the ideas in your head, they are not enough to be an inspiration when they collide. The only way you'll feel that inspiration energy is by being actually excited that you managed to notice that moment happening when those concepts or memories collide. Because doing so before has always led to positive experiences, and that is because the work itself is the reward. So a combination could be, for example, a childhood memory and something that you experience, a song or a movie or a shape that you see in your daily life, and you combine that with that childhood memory, and out comes this new idea for a painting or a piece of creative work, and that is a moment of inspiration if you can feel excited about starting work on that new idea. In that void that is in your head where these ideas and memories exist, the things that will be connecting first are items that are relatively close together, like for example, warm hues and sunsets. This is not exactly groundbreaking. This is also why it might feel like your imagination is not that great in the beginning. The connections are so close to each other that they seem predictable and quite boring. But when you keep taking every order your imagination throws at you, eventually the distance between those ideas will get wider and wider. At some point you'll be looking at your washing machine and thinking what kind of vehicle it could be turned into. These association leaps between seemingly unrelated things take more creative courage than your first artworks. But through this practice, you'll get braver because you have taught yourself that following these creative impulses leads to a positive feedback loop. You get to make art, you learn more about yourself, and you see things in more interesting ways, which leads to interesting, better, and more imaginative ideas happening in your head. Trust me on this, I used to be a blank canvas observer, but now I don't have enough hours in the week to paint all the ideas that come to me. In all concept art classes that I have taught, there's always a student that complains that they don't have any good ideas. I'm pretty strict on this, and I just don't allow that type of language in any classroom, because it's harmful to other students, and more importantly, it's harmful to the student saying these words out loud. So that's the first practice, and that is something that should be part of your creative life all the time. The second step of this might sound really counterintuitive, but it is just as important to building a better connection to your imagination as listening to those moments of inspiration. Inspiration is overrated. I don't know how you feel about inspiration, but in my experience, most people have a very lazy and self-entitled way of thinking about inspiration. Art students talk about it like something that lucky people have, but they don't have it because they feel like they're just not lucky enough. And this is a fixed mindset. It's not helpful for growth. Please don't ever use the lack of inspiration in your situation as a get out of work card. Inspiration is great when you have that experience, but what every artist needs to learn at some point, especially a working artist, that you absolutely cannot wait around for it. That might be okay if art is just your casual hobby, but you can't base your work on sitting in a lotus position on your workroom floor, waiting for the divine intervention to happen, and maybe it might float through the window and give you a new idea for a painting. That is not a plan to make stuff happen. At least I hope that we can all agree that it's not a good plan to make things happen. This is why not just painting, but almost all areas of creative work have ways to build momentum. A lot of writers swear by the practice of morning pages. The purpose of morning pages is to write whatever comes to your head for a few pages to get the momentum for writing. Same goes for dancing. In her book, The Creative Habit, Violet Tharp, who is a dance choreographer, calls this scratching. She describes scratching as the act of doing the verb before the noun. She needs to dance before she can create a dance. When I don't have an idea for art, I need to paint before I can turn those paint marks into a painting. You've probably seen this in my live streams. These paintings have started as my live streams, by the way. So in the beginning of my live streams, I usually have just random blobs of paint that I'm molding on the canvas. The wrong way to read what I'm doing in those moments is to think that Mikko is working on a painting. Honestly, it's more likely that I have no idea what the painting is going to be, and I'm not even worried about it in the beginning of a live stream. What I'm actually focused on is finding something interesting that I can build on, something that might turn into an idea if I focus on it hard enough. I always say that nobody fails an inkblot test. Even if I don't feel inspired by what I'm painting, when I see shapes that I'm drawn to, I'll be interested in what I'm painting. When you aren't running on the fumes of inspiration, then finding something interesting and following it is always the next best thing. It just requires more work because it doesn't happen on its own. This is something that you can bring into your own idea creation process. Look for the interesting and follow that thread where it takes you. Beginner creatives tend to think that an idea creation and working on the final piece are these two separate blocks. This can lead to that moment when you're just staring at a canvas or page and nothing happens. I've been there several times, but you don't need to wait for this green light of inspiration to give you a permission to start. Just start, even when you're not ready. In more cases than not, these parts are completely interconnected in my work. Getting to that momentum and finding the ideas through it is more important than planning. If an idea needs planning, and by planning I mean like sketching or even 3D modeling, I can return to that phase and do all those things when I need it. Art can be quite messy. It's rarely a linear process, and it's one of those reasons why I think all those follow-along tutorials are just selling an empty lie about what the creative process is actually like. Trying to fit your process into a template that someone invented for you is just going to make you feel frustrated when you don't have an idea to build on in the first place. that just makes the rest of those steps completely useless, because if you don't know what you're working on, the template serves no purpose. So embrace the messiness of creativity, because it's the most fun part. When you build that courage to make longer leaps between different concepts, memories, and experiences in your life, and you pull them together in your own art, following through those ideas feels incredibly wild. It's almost dangerous, and you feel like absolute badass for doing it anyway, no matter how scary or crazy those ideas might be. Creativity is about being a leader. You're showing us the way into those worlds that only you can show us, so I hope you say yes to the ideas that come to you, even the first ones, the ones that seem kind of lame at first. And when no ideas are coming at all, I encourage you to start anyway. Time is limited. Don't waste it by staring at a blank page or canvas. You need to be proactive and search for that connection to your imagination when it's not coming to you on its own, because all of us will benefit from seeing what you will find. I'm Mikko, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!